I have about 240 hours in this project. This is just a quick overview. This is not a tutorial. This is just a brief account of how everything came together. I did not intend to put this on the YouTube originally, but here it is. I found Ruthie Red in a field at a buddy of mine's house, overgrown with honeysuckle, pretty bad. It took a lot of work to dig her out. Wasn't really able to see what we had until we got all the honeysuckle off and tore everything away and found that it was missing most of its lights. All the hydraulic lines were dry rotted. Pretty much everything was inoperable. There was no way to hold the bucket up, so we had to use a come along and tow straps to jack the bucket up and hold it in place. You see there that there's no exhaust on it. There's a soup can over it. It rusted off and filled with water season after season, thawing and freezing, and broke the exhaust manifold on it. So needed to replace that. Drug it quite a distance up to the driveway so we can get it loaded on my trailer. As you can see there, it's a legit Massey loader, which was awesome. Came to rest here at home. And here's a quick circle as a look around here to see how bad it was. The 3-point hitch on the right rear was frozen, the adjustment. Rebuilt that later, put new wiring in it here with a ignition switch. The kill switch, kill cable was frozen, changed the oil and filters, added a battery and jump box. And then after changing all the filters and oils and fluids and replacing the kill switch that's on it, the kill cable, we went ahead and test fire it. So here's that part.
Let's see what happens.
Blue rust everywhere, like a big pile of rust that came out of it. I did not realize at that time that the head gasket was actually split in cylinder 1 due to the freezing and thawing. The hydraulic lines and the entire hydraulic system were dry rotted, as you can see here. Surface rust was pretty bad. All fluids and filter needed changed. That's the vent cap. There's before the solar was finished and the barn was finished. There she was right before I got it fired up. And you see hydraulic lines were puking hydraulic fluid everywhere. Right front tire didn't hold any air. Took about everything that it had to get the loader disconnected so I could drop it in the driveway and start marking all the hydraulic lines with color-coded zip ties. That way when I took it apart, I could lay it out and take it to Rumpke Hydraulics, which is who actually rebuilt the hydraulic lines for me. So big thanks to them. They did a fantastic job. So that was the newest cylinder out of all 4 of them, and I had to use those dimensions to replace that cylinder that you're looking at now, which was bent. Got everything pulled off of it. Got the new seals, glands, and wipers from Rumpke Hydraulics and replaced the one cylinder there that's black. Rebuild everything. Once the cylinders were rebuilt and I got new hydraulics in, I started working on the tins. The tins were pretty rusty and all the decals were bad. Ended up using sandblaster with 2 or 3 different types of media and found that it was pretty slow getting all the paint and rust off of it. So I switched over to wire wheel and grinders to get the majority of the heavy scale rust. And you can see how badly covered in oil it was and grease. It needed pretty much everything. All the wiring, all the rubber, anything that was rubber. If the seat was bad, couldn't use any of the adjustments on the seat. Pulled the fenders off, radiator out. Here's a walk around of how bad the rust was and the grease buildup was in the front end. Every bit of this I sanded descaled, degreased, and the rear end there, you can see that it's actually got some moss or algae growing on it. This is after I degreased it and pressure washed it, just the difference that it made from doing that. And then I started to do the primer coat on the front end. I primer coated everything and then went and did 3 coats of paint, the Massey gray, after I got everything taped off, and then did black there for where the radiator sits. This is about the time that I found out that the alternator was bad and that it was frozen, so I needed a new belt, new alternator. I purchased those. Then all the individual pieces, every piece I got off, found out that there was just a lot of bad rot and rust, and had to clean everything up real good. So there I got the new exhaust manifold on, working on the rest of the tins, got everything down to bare metal. There were quite a few holes in the fenders where it used to have fender lights for turn signals. I removed those and flush mounted everything and got rid of all the holes and fixed all the damage. You can see that fender's got some really bad damage on the outside. It was all bent up. After all the body work was done, then I did 3 coats of primer on everything, started color. I did 3 coats of color, did Massey Red, found that at Quality Family Farm and Home. It was way better pricing than Amazon. And then here's the dashboard, how bad it was. All the gauges were all rusted, wiring was bad, needed new fuses, switches, everything. So I gutted the dashboard, took it down to bare metal, and replaced all the gauges and brackets and wiring. And then right about here is about the time that I figured out, I put the new alternator on, as you can see there, and went ahead and test fired it and realized that it was filling the cylinder with antifreeze. So rebuilt the grill, put new LED lights on it, and then I replaced the water pump because the water pump blew up and fell off of it. Then a new seat. Was working on the wiring here, redid every piece of wiring, got it fired again, and then I found that I definitely had a blown head gasket, so I pulled the head. Cylinder 4, closest to the steering system of the tractor. It had, I checked the cross hatching, looked great in the cylinders, but it had some rust on it, and you can see here that cylinder actually had some water that laid in it. So replaced the gasket, put the head back together after everything was nice and clean, and here's a test fire. Was pretty excited about that. Everything was working really good. Got to service the whole fuel system, new Napa fuel filter there. Cleaned it all up. Started putting the decals on and the tins. After that was done, I started putting the molding on around the dashboard and finishing up the dashboard and the handholds there on the fenders. This is the LED implement light I added to the left there. And then the battery cutoff switch in the dashboard, LED headlights. I changed out the front tires for 10-ply truck tires so they didn't sink when loaded. The center cap of the steering wheel didn't turn out as well as I liked, but it is a tractor. It's not a showpiece, it's a work piece. So there's the loader when I painted it, all but the front bumper, which is touching the gravel. I did that last after I got it back on the tractor. And there's the hydraulic cylinders all repainted. And there's everything put back on the loader. Now I pulled the bucket off, replaced all the bushings in the loader arms and the bucket. So you can see those bushings on the very ends were shot. I had to cut those out with a plasma cutter. I had to cut the brackets off the bucket and the bushings and replace all the bushings, and then move the brackets to, with new pins, new bushings, move that to the new plate for the quick attach. So here I'm just running a few beads on this quick attach plate that I added to the back of the bucket. I did have to pound it pretty hard for quite a while with a sledgehammer to get it flat enough that I could actually put this plate on it. Could only do a little bead on each side, so just a few inches on each side before, back and forth, so I didn't warp the bucket or the plate and get too much heat. There's a little piece there. It's just going back and forth to not overheat any of the metal. Make sure I got good penetration. And there's Mama Bear. She's out there videoing for me, so I appreciate that. She's helping me out. Next up was to start mocking up the universal bracket that goes from tractor to skid steer. As you can see there, I had to do some cutouts for the locks to fit, and then the overall width of this universal bracket is 49 3/4 inches, which is just wide enough for my loader arms. Thanks to my buddy Tach for giving me the idea to make sure that I got a wide enough bracket. There's many different sizes that you can buy. It just so happens my loader arms are really wide, and I ended up with about an inch of clearance on each side, or a little less, to mount these brackets to the plate from the loader arms. So they worked out perfect, and this bracket has been flawless in performance. So here, after everything was mocked up and I got the pins in, new bushings and everything welded, I cleaned up all the welds and went ahead and greased everything, and then gave it a good coat of paint, made sure everything fit and worked like it was supposed to. So here, after I painted, it rained on it. I had to redo the paint after that. So it's got a little bit of grease and some fingerprints on it, but I did fix that. The fork stanchion I picked up from ES out in Indiana. I'll put a link to their website as well. And I picked up the forks off of Craigslist for about $100. Those were all great suggestions from friends of mine that have done these types of modifications to their tractors as well. This was a really fun project and a lot of work, but well worth it. If you have any questions about parts I used or processes or anything on a build you might be doing, feel free and leave it in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and see y'all soon.